Hi friends, it's Sarah from rufflesandrainboots.com, and I've been asked to put all of my Patriotic Gnome tutorials together. Most of them, actually all of them, can be hot glued. You don't need a sewing machine except for the preview of this big guy working on that pattern. Alright, so I'm going to start out with a Dollar Tree 4th of July gnome. He's super cute and wicked easy to put together. Boop! You can see here he's 8 inches tall. You do not need a pattern, and actually you can make this a little shorter or taller. I'm going to use Dollar Tree materials, including a scarf and this balloon weight and this weird pillow you can get at some of the Dollar Trees. So what I'm going to do first is just remove the wrapping and the decorations from the balloon weight because I'm going to use those. Let me clean up a little bit here. That balloon weight is going to be the weight to our gnome. So it's a really good idea if you have a couple of those lying around from old parties, you can use those. Just put it into the bottom of a Dollar Tree sock. This is an adult sock, so that size sock will have a good be a good indicator of how tall your body is going to be. All right, so I'm going to hack up this pillow because A, there's stuffing inside, and B, I'm going to use that blue, like shaggy outside as the beard. So I'm just going to stuff this as high as you want. Again, the whole idea is just to make sure you have a nice solid body. All right, so we're going to be covering up that body, so don't worry if the fill shows through. I just blew off all that stuffing. That's how I clean. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use the tie from the balloon weight to tie this guy off. I always recommend not using a rubber band just because over time the rubber does fail. I'm just going to go ahead and hot glue this in case, just in case. Fold that down and make sure we add a little hot glue to the top of the sock so none of our stuffing ever comes out. All right, now's the fun part, right? We are going to create a hat. This is a Dollar Tree scarf. You can get these every year. They even have a very cute Americana scarf this year. And so all I'm going to do is make it as wide. I'm using 2 layers here, but I'm going to make it as wide as the body of the gnome plus at least ½ an inch so that I can make that width. And then you can see here, I'm just going to get the size of where I'm going to start my triangle. And all I did is just eyeball measure that. That's it. And then I'm going to fold this over and just cut it right here. And if you want to be exact about this, because this fabric does kind of shift, you can go ahead and pin this together when you're cutting. I find it's not really needed, honestly. Save yourself the hassle. So I'm going to go ahead and just hot glue up these open edges. We definitely want to make sure we do that, otherwise it'll fall in on itself. So just go ahead and glue that as if you were gluing 2 pieces of fabric together, just with a hot glue gun. This is not fabric hot glue, by the way. You don't need it for this. These are really thin, very, very thin scarves. Okay. Now that I have that, I'm just going to choose whichever side you want to be the outside. Make sure that, I had a snag on one side of my scarf. I didn't see it when I picked it up from the store. So I just want to make sure that's not going to be the, quote, pretty side. And then all I'm going to do is just flip one side over on the edge here and glue them together. And do watch out for your fingers because, like I said, these scarves are pretty thin. And we want to make sure we don't burn you. If you're at the dollar store, pick up one of their silicone face mask applicators, all right? That will help if the glue finger guards are really, they don't work for me. I find I don't use them. All right, so now I'm going to measure the height of my gnome. Now for the width, I'm going to wrap my entire gnome in this. So he has what we call a wraparound beard. I think it's really good because number 1, this pillow is massive, and number 2, the sock, we can see that darker fill through that white sock. You can use a black sock. They have blue socks. I actually saw red, white, and blue themed socks this year in my Dollar Tree, so whatever you want to do for the sock is fine. I did take a lint roller to this because, as you could see, it made a bit of a mess. But all I'm going to do here is just wrap it around. That's it. You don't have to be fancy with this. This is going to be covered at the top, so it doesn't matter what it looks like, okay? Look at that shake. Don't you just love that? I get distracted easily in my craft room. and I sit there and make shoes dance and gnomes dance and beards apparently dance. So we're just going to hot glue this around all the way. Do make sure you get the very bottom because we don't want that to lift or come off. Here you go. And make sure it's all tucked in nicely on the edges. Now the top doesn't matter. We're going to be covering that. You can go ahead and glue that down or tuck it in and kind of press it together so that you pleat it a little bit. I don't think it's needed, but all right, so now remember when I said you're going to make sure you have a pretty side? We're going to flip this out to that pretty side now. I'm using a skewer to poke out the very tip of the hat, and then look at this. Just tuck it up in there. Now that becomes the stuffing for your hat. You don't even need more stuffing. For the nose, I'm just using a wood round or a clay ball or a pom-pom, whatever you have on hand. I'm going to glue that to the fabric part of this pillow, and then I'm going to glue the top of the nose to the bottom of the brim of the hat, just to make sure that is solid and never moves. That's the focal point of our cutie. I am going to glue down the very tip of this hat, and then I'm going to stick his little body. I know it didn't hurt because he's not real, but I just kind of cut a little piece into that, or cut a little hole into that body and just tucked in my decoration. He's okay. He's not hurt, I promise. So for my arms, now this is optional, which is why I'm throwing it on the end. I have this extra bit of the scarf left over, right? So if you want, you can choose those little Dollar Tree chalkboard tags that have the little clipboard, and you can just write on there pop or happy 4th or whatever you want to write on it. And then you can make the arms the same way I'm doing. So all I'm doing, I folded over 2 layers, and then I'm just going to roll up these arms. It's not fancy. I think that seasonal crafts should be pretty easy, and this one is definitely easy. All right, so now I'm just tucking in that last little bit on the edge. We're going to put the seam side toward the body, right? So now, because there you go. So I'm just going to cut it down to size. And at the very end, I'm just going to add a little wood round or a little clay ball. You can see here, I am actually cutting this little clay ball into 2 pieces. So now I have 2 little half rounds. And again, I just have them on hand. You can use a little wooden bead. You can even use the little garlands from the Dollar Tree, whatever you have. A pom-pom. There's always pom-poms at my Dollar Tree. All right, so I just tucked that into the end there, and that's going to be my little hand. I'm going to repeat this and make another little hand the same size, which I'm not going to make you watch, but this time I can actually size it to where I need it to be, but I didn't. I know I kind of wasted a little bit there, but if you have more of this scarf left over, which you will from this project anyway, go ahead and make like a cute little fabric flower or accents. You can do like cut it up into strips and do a nice little tie string banner for like a tiered tray or something. I just think this is a nice simple pattern. I love this scarf, and like I said, I love the new one. They have this new one at my Dollar Tree that's sort of an Americana vibe. Love it. So pretty. All right, so for here, I'm just tucking them up under the hat because remember, we didn't glue down the hat. I'm trying to find the hole that I made, and so I can stick that back in and make sure that I can make it look like he's holding it. There you go. So we're just going to glue this in place right next to that so it just looks like he's, holding it. And then I'm going to clip on this little sign right to my Dollar Tree balloon holder and glue down the arms and the hat to the arms. And that's it. So this guy is really easy to do. Hot glue gun, super simple. Another 4th of July gnome that people loved is this little guy. He's got a firework on his back. He's got, so cute little thing. He's 6 to 7 inches, making him the perfect tiered tray gnome. So I'm going to be using Mongolian fur for him. I'm going to be using this fleece I got at the craft store, and sort of like a minky fleece for the red. I'm using the pattern. You can get that down below. This one, I'm just going to hot glue the entire thing. You can absolutely sew. Any of my patterns are going to be sew and no sew that I'm showing today. All right, so I'm just going to fold up the bottom brim because this is it's not necessarily a frayable fabric, but sometimes on fleece it's so thick it'll show that center line. I don't like it. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly fold up the brim on this entire hat before I fold right sides together and glue along this back edge. Now you can see this is not a flat edge hat, and that is because this is not a flat back gnome. This was a really fun pattern to put together and test because there's so much detail in both the front and the back of the gnome, making it super duper fun for something like a tiered tray. This was absolutely developed for tiered trays, by the way. If you love putting those together, this is your guy. So the body you can see as well. We're just going to follow the instructions on that pattern. Again, you can sew or hot glue this. I'm going to attach the base here. Promise it fits. This one, it has a dart system. You can opt to do or not. I'm showing you it in white because it's very hard to see on that red fabric. So I'm just going to show you how you would put this all together in white. For those of you who have made this with a sewing machine, you know that the darts are sewn inside. If you are working with glue, you're going to assemble the body and then dart the fabric. And again, totally optional. I have shared this particular pattern with the darts and without the darts. It's super easy and it's super fun because it gives the bottom a kind of raised look. And so I know a lot of people ask me, how do I get the little rounded off bottom? This is how. The darting system is a super easy way to do it. I prefer the look of this particular pattern with the darts. But you can see you're going to do dart on one side and then you're going to do the dart on the other side. And again, I know this is white and not the red of the Minky, but you just couldn't see it in the tutorial. So I made another one for you. I'm just snipping off any of the glue that's dried on the outside there so that it's nice and clean. Okay, so now you can see the bottom looks all wonky, but when we fill it, I promise you, I'm just gluing the dart all the way to the edge there on that one. But when we fill it with weight, it evens out and then it kind of, I don't know how to explain it, kind of balloons up. It's really cute. But I'm just testing the seams, pulling everything apart, making sure it doesn't come undone or anything, and you can see. All right, moving back to the red one now. Here you go. We're going to poke out the very tip. You do need the tip on both the hat and the bottom poked out. I'm not going to make you watch me do that because I just did it, but I did the same thing. I'm going to fill it up with about 1/2 cup of polyfill, or poly pellets, I mean, for the weight, and then fill up the rest with polyfill. You do want to make sure you can stuff this guy pretty well so he's nice and chunky. I like a chunky gnome. You can also opt to put wire into the body, and that will allow you to do two things. Number one, if you have like interchangeable hats, this is a perfect body to build. If you want to sell this to people with an interchangeable hat system, meaning you create one body and then create 12 or 15 different hats they can buy, you can buy a commercial license for this pattern and do so. And if you do that, I highly recommend that you put in wire into the body because that will make it'll be a little bit easier to poke the tip of the hat all the way to the tip of the body. It just looks more clean and finished. All right, so I'm just going to glue that up. Again, the pattern is really easy to follow. You know I have testers that do this for me. Every skill level I do with beginner, intermediate, and advanced sewing and crafters. All right, so now I'm just going to size my Mongolian fur. Now here's the measurements of mine on the screen, 4 inches wide by 3 inches high. You can choose to make a thinner beard. You can see here. I do not recommend a wraparound beard for this body style because you are going to lose some detail in that back if you do that. So what I would do here is just glue the very top down, make it sure it's secure, lift it up, and then glue it all the way down on the body, all the way around. If you are making a seasonal interchangeable set, go with something simple like a gray and white beard or a white beard. Now this is absolutely optional. I cut a little rectangle here and then made a mustache by gluing the back of the fur fabric together. It's simple, it's quick, adds a little something something. All right, so I need to make sure I understand where I put my nose and my mustache, so I just popped on the hat really quickly. Now I'm going to split the fur to its fabric backing right in the center, add a bit of hot glue, and add on a nose. For a nose, you can use a clay round, a pom-pom, a wood round, a wood bead, anything you have. Slip on this hat, pull it down in the back. If you are making interchangeable, that's where you stop. If you're not making interchangeable, go ahead and glue this down to secure it right in the very front on the tippy top of the nose, and you can do the back as well. Now, if you want arms, we can make that. The pattern includes a whole bunch of different extras. If you want to go without arms, you can see this guy is absolutely adorable even without the arms. So in case you do want to make the arms, I'm going to match the same body fabric for my arms. If you're making interchangeables, I would actually attach the arms to the hats. Okay, you feeling me there? Make sure you can do that, because that way they'll have different arms and you can glue them right to the inside of the hat with the interchangeable pattern. So I'm going to, for this guy, I want the arms lower on the body, so I'm going to actually cut the arms in half, and I'm going to put a little bit of floral wire in there so that I can bend them. Because again, I have a plan for mine, which is to make a little firework and put it on his back. All right, so you can see here, I'm going to glue my arms both to the body and to the inside of the hat. And I'm gluing them a little lower down than the pattern calls for, only because I'm going to stack something on this guy's back. Speaking of that something, it's an easy firework. I'm just going to create a circle, and I'm going to cut out a triangle. Everybody gets a piece of pie. It always it looks like pie, doesn't it? This is just a sort of fabric, sort of foam, sort of glitter paper thing I picked up at the Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to glue it so that it forms a cone tip. This is hard to explain. I'm just going to basically hem this first. It's not hemming, but because you can see the white of the paper, and I don't want people to see the white of the paper, I'm just snipping areas around it on the bottom here, and then I'm just tucking it up. And again, it doesn't have to be pretty because we're going to make it into a circle. I'm using a piece of foam, and all I'm going to do is just create a cylinder with that foam, add a little hot glue, and then I know you know what's coming next, right? I'm going to add on the top. All right, so I'm just cleaning up this edge here. And when I add on the top, I'm going to put the two sides of the cutout pie together, let that sit, and then add it to the top. This is, yes, curling ribbon that I got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just cutting a little round foam piece to match the bottom. I'm gluing on my little ribbon curls, and then I'm going to glue that into the bottom of my firecracker. Again, you don't have to do all this, right? I had a couple clay hands left over from another project, so I'm going to pop those in there again. Pom-poms, wood rounds, anything you'd like. Now, because this is a big firecracker, I thought it would be really cute to have it like he's holding it on his back, bringing it to the 4th of July celebration. And so I tied on strings so I can loop it around his arms in just a second. Here we go. So I'm just going to tie this onto his arms, and I'm not going to glue it, so this can be taken off and swapped out, and here he is all ready. Okay, so for the next one, now this is a sew or no sew pattern. This is the best-selling pattern on Ruffles and Rainbows. It's called the Scandinavian Sweeties. It produces a gnome that is 10 to 12 inches tall. It is an heirloom quality gnome. You can do it on a paper mache cone. You can make it with a sewing machine like I'm going to show here, or with a hot glue gun. So I cut out the pieces to my pattern. I am going to be using arms, body, base, and hat, as well as mitten. I'm going to add 1/2 inch to the hat base, or the hat pattern at the very base of the hat. The reason I'm going to do that is because I needed a little bit more scrunch for this guy, just because I wanted to see if I could do it, honestly. I am going to cut out a little fleece heart, and I'm going to sew that on to the back of the body, and I just eyeballed that based on the pattern. You can add it on later with hot glue. You can make a pocket, like a cute little jean pocket, but here's my little heart. So I took this to my sewing machine. It takes the whole thing, the whole pattern, Takes less than 7 minutes to firm up. You can see I have shared a lot of gnomes in this pattern. You can even create a hat that is permanently bent. This is a very versatile pattern is my point. All right, so I'm going to take this. If you are new to sewing, this is a beginner pattern, okay? The only tricky part is sewing the base on to the body. But again, all you have to do is glue it if you're not comfortable sewing. All right, so once that is on, you can see I always check my seams no matter if I'm gluing or if I'm sewing. If you want to use the arms, go ahead and sew those. You can actually top stitch those so you don't have to worry about flipping them out. Now, for the mittens, I do include many different styles of mittens in this same pattern. This one I go slow on. You can actually sew these a different way. You can hot glue these, whatever you want. You can use little wood balls for the hands. You don't even have to use the mittens. All right, so I'm just going to finish sewing up this hat, which is seriously easy. It takes about 30 seconds. Straight down, and here's all my pieces. Okay, so if you are a beginner to sewing, number one, know that I'm here for you. Number two, this is a great pattern to start with. There's no tricky darts. There's nothing, you know, that isn't just a straight stitch. All right, so I'm just going to turn everything right side out. I use a dowel, or you can use a turner to actually do that, but it's pretty easy. Just use the dowel to poke out the tip of the hat as well. I really do love this gnome. I'm moving and I've just packed him away, and I was super sad because I wanted to display him this year. All right, so now we are ready to actually assemble our gnome. Isn't that fun? So I'm going to add a little bit of floof, a little fluff, a little polyfill right into my arms. I don't need them to bend. If you do need them to bend, we can pop a little floral wire in here. I do recommend leaving the top ½ inch unstuffed so we can make that a nice flush finish at the hat. All right, so I'm going to slip on these. They're so cute. I know I'm giggling like a schoolgirl, but I just love these little tiny mittens. Look at the thumb. Oh, I love it. I'm using a too big hot glue gun here because my other one was on the fritz. This is before I got my detail tip Surebonder. So into the mitten, now I'm adding a little bit of stuffing just to make sure that thumb and the very tip of the mitten are always nice and firm. People love to squish that, right? So we want to make sure nothing, we give them something to squish and nothing comes out. All right, so I'm adding just a little bit of detail. This is obviously not required. I just wanted a little pop of color to bring in that hat color. So I'm adding a red embroidery thread to the very top of the mitten, and I'm just tying it here. You know, it'd be really cute is like a red rickrack. That'd be super cute. Because I'm paranoid, I always hit the knot with a little bit of hot glue, let it dry, and then snip off the edges once it's dry. Or snip off the ends, once it's dry. I just love this little guy. If you asked me which one of my 4th of July gnomes is my favorite, it's definitely this guy. There's just so much detail, so much love, and I don't know, I just really like him. All right, so now we've got our little hands here. As I mentioned, you can put wire in them as well. We're going to assemble the gnome by putting 1 cup of poly pellets into the base. There you go. And then filling the rest up with polyfill. Oh, I'm going to do that again off camera. I am going to put in wire into the body because I think it always is fun when you have a posable hat. I'm a nerd. I love getting more for my money. And so all I do is I bend the bottom under so it doesn't poke through. I turn that 90 degrees, click it in all the way to the bottom. So you push it all the way to the bottom, line it up with that back seam, and then cut it off so you can bend a piece all the way up to the tippy top. Okay? So that should be straight, standing straight up, okay? And then all you're going to do, I'm going to finish with the part that I spilled. Yeah, there's the rest of that 1 cup. And now I'm just going to fill the body. I get asked a lot about how much to fill in a gnome body, and I will tell you this. Fill it until when you squeeze it, it bounces back on its own, okay? That is my best advice because over time that polyfill is going to break down. And we don't want that, especially on an heirloom piece like this. All right, so I always recommend securing the wire so it doesn't come off. You can do that a number of ways. Number one, if you're sewing the back of this thing up, you can just incorporate that into the sewn channel. If you would like to glue it, you can also do that, meaning all you have to do is add glue to the inside seam of that little channel and wrap it around the wire, just like that. There you go. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So now we can glue or sew up the back after we finish stuffing it completely. I like to roll it in between my hands to distribute that fill. It will make it look a little bit more polished and a little bit more finished. All right, as I mentioned, you can sew or glue this. If you are going to glue it, still use clips or pins. And the reason I say that is because it just makes a nice clean finish. Because this is an enclosed body, you can also use this one for a year-round gnome. You just make the body something, you know, basic like this jean material, or you can do a nice ticking stripe if you like the farmhouse look. And again, we can just change out the hats and make it a year-round gnome. Again, I would attach the arms to the hat so that you can swap that out. Let me know down in the comments below if you think I should show you how to make a year-round set. I could probably do that. For those of you new to cutting faux fur, you can use an X-Acto knife or a razor blade to just score that fabric backing and then rip it. This works for shapes, it works for blocks. Either way, you're good. I am tucking up the bottom hem of my hat. You don't have to, it's fleece, it's not going anywhere. But I just want to get an idea of where to position everything on my gnome, including the arms. So you can see over here, I'm just going to play with that position, and then I'm going to put them in with pins, which is absolutely optional, okay? Don't worry. You can just glue them right on. You can sew them on, and you can even use doll arm hinges. They are on Amazon. You can even use doll arm hinges and build your gnome to allow for movable arms. All right, but I'm just going to glue mine down because I've had enough with sewing today. So I'm just going to glue those down to the body. And then once I have those glued down, I'm going to finish assembling just the bottom of my beard. So I don't like a straight across look, so I'm hacking off the bottom two side corners of my beard. Gives it a nice beautiful V shape. And now I'm going to glue that on. You can also sew this on if you like sewing things by hand. I don't. So it's the hot glue gun for me. I do recommend gluing down the entire beard. To put on the nose, you split the fur to its fabric backing and then add the hot glue to the fabric portion of that fur before giving an intense nose boop to make sure that nose is attached. I'm using a 1-inch wood ball here, but you can use a pom-pom. You can use fabric wrapped and filled with polyfill, whatever you'd like. I just turned under the brim of the hat, glued it to the top of the nose, and now I'm going to glue down the sides that are not touching the beard. Gluing to faux fur is not going to be a lasting option, so we want to avoid it whenever we can. You can see here in the back, in the back I'm going to make a permanent brim right here, and then I'm going to glue the back of the hat down all along the back seam. Oh, tuck that part under. There you go. And when you do that, you don't have any hot glue show through the fabric, which is super nice. Other gnomes I have on Ruffles and Rain Boots, I will put the links for those down below. I have no video tutorials. This guy is a ridiculously quick 2-minute gnome, and I love it because I use scraps for it. If you'd like to make it, here's how. He's little, but he's also 3-dimensional, right? You can use a scrap piece of wood, whatever you've got on hand. All right, let's give him a boop, boop. For this guy, I am using a dollar spot wood sign from Target, a wood bead, some fabric scraps, and some faux fur scraps. You can choose to paint over your wood, but I found out that little light sanding works with these dollar spot signs. They just look great. And so you can see I have this cut off piece. I'm going to shape a 3D hat. So I'm asked a lot how to do this, so I decided to put together a really quick tutorial on how to do this. All right, so I'm going to use pinking shears on mine. You absolutely don't have to. You can just fold down the edges, or if you really like the rustic look, you can just leave it and let it fray. This is just cotton. All right, so you can see I formed the bottom, and then I have to cut off just a little bit to make sure I have enough to glue the very tip together and turn it down. And that's all I'm going to do right here. I'm just going to glue the top of our triangle. This works with small signs, this works with large signs, and if you have a couple of those Dollar Tree MDF signs, this is a fun project. You can make a very nice looking wall hanging in about 3 minutes. All right, so I am eyeball measuring the fur. You should probably do better, but I don't know, I'm just not really interested in making something harder than it needs to be. So I'm just going to use my X-Acto knife to score that fabric backing. Watch this, yankity-doo-dah, and it's all the way off with no fraying. So I'm going to glue this down now. See how easy this is? You're like almost done. I'm going to glue it down all the way, and now, you don't have to do this, but I am going to stuff this thing with polyfill. So I want everything on. I put my nose on, I put the side, one entire side of my hat down, and you can see I'm going to put all along the bottom, I'm going to glue that down. So here, all along one side, tuck some polyfill in there. You don't need a lot. And then glue the other side down. See how easy that is? So now I'm going to fold over. You can leave that top hanging off the top. Nothing will fly out. No fill will come out. But I decided to tuck mine over on the side. I had a little chip on this side, painted it white. And for this little detail, I think I literally took this off a Dollar Tree doll. And yeah, popped it on there and we're good. That's it for this little guy. I told you this is a super quick craft you can do on any size wood board. This guy is coming soon in a new pattern. I hope after I am settled in Texas after we move. So I want to know, I know this is a lot longer, but I was asked for a compilation video. Do you like this style? Let me know down below which one is your favorite. Use that comment section and description box to find all the details. As always, please like, share, and subscribe for more crafty fun.